There was a moment in the fourth quarter of Saturday's game where I wondered to myself if Mike Norvell's offense was going to be shut out in the second half for a second straight week. After that dreadful four-play sequence from inside the Clemson 5-yard line early in the fourth, it looked like the Seminoles were going to just stay stuck on 14 for the rest of the night. That didn't happen. In fact, what the Seminoles did end up accomplishing for the rest of the game, along with what they did in the first half, was genuinely impressive enough that it filled me with legitimate hope for the remainder of the year. Now, you might want to choose to be encouraged by touchdowns in quote-unquote garbage time when you're already down by 20 points. That's fine. But first off, I don't think a 20-point lead with an entire quarter to play should be defined as garbage time. I'm a Falcons fan, after all. I watched that Super Bowl, and the only garbage time I saw was in the can I was throwing up into as the game ended. Let's not pretend that Clemson was just cool with FSU driving down to the 2 early in the fourth quarter, or getting down there again a few minutes later, finally converting it into points with the Jordan Travis touchdown to Ja'Kai Douglas. And yes, Clemson did play relatively soft when the Seminoles offense took over inside its own 10 late in the game, down by 13. But the Tigers didn't stop playing. Why would they? The game was still in doubt. One of these days, FSU might actually kick an onside kick that is hard to recover for the other team. And if that had happened on Saturday night, all of a sudden the game is very much in doubt. I can promise you Dabo didn't want that game coming down to an onside kick. But his defense, which is terrific, couldn't stop Florida State to finish the game. And it couldn't really stop Florida State to start the game either. And honestly, I think that's what emboldens me the most about what this offense and team can do for the final 5 games of the season. Florida State, in a shock to me, was able to run all over Clemson in the first half. The running backs ran exceptionally hard. I loved what I saw from both Lawrence Toafili and Trey Benson, and I loved how willing Travis was as a runner as well. If you took away the sack yardage, the trio combined for 160 yards on 21 carries in the first half against Clemson. 160 yards. I mean, what? Who in the world could have foreseen that? Nobody not named Ohio State does that to Clemson, ever. And yet Florida State ran all over those dudes for a half and finished the game with 206 yards rushing. Again, if you take away the 21 yards lost on Travis sacks, and they don't allow you to do that, but just for the sake of this, we'll do it. The FSU offense ran for 227 yards on 32 attempts without its starting running back. Let me put these numbers in perspective for you. Since beating Lamar Jackson in Louisville in that memorable showdown in 2016, Clemson had played 77 regular season games since that night. You know how many times the Tigers had allowed over 200 yards rushing in that span? 2. Make it 3 now thanks to Benson, Toafili, Travis, and that offensive line. You know how many times Clemson had allowed at least 460 yards of total offense during that span? 6 out of 77 games. You're allowed to be excited about that. I get we're all disappointed in the way the game got away from FSU. The fumble before the half, the fake punt, the defensive display in the first half, the loss itself. It was all frustrating. I'm not telling you to not let it bother you. Be bothered. Dabo has beaten you 7 straight games. Yuck. But you are not going to play a better defense than Clemson for the rest of the season. So if anything, the way the running game performed all night, the way Travis played in the fourth quarter, and the way the receivers ran after the catch on most of those screen passes, that should fill you with some hope that maybe, just maybe, this offense can finish out this year as one of the best in the country. You might scoff at that. I get it. Florida State's 4-3 right now. But right now, Florida State also has the 28th best offense in the nation, according to Football Outsiders efficiency rankings. Take that for what it's worth, but it's there. And that's after playing the 3 best teams on the schedule, including 2 elite defenses. Pro Football Focus has the Seminoles as the 8th best offense in the country. So according to that outlet, FSU already is elite. I'm not sure I'm ready to write or say or think that. I do care about scoring offense. That seems pretty important after all. And I did see that second half against NC State. But I was sincerely impressed with how that unit played for the most part on Saturday night against Clemson. Was it perfect? Of course not. Are the fourth down calls frustrating and at times confusing? Absolutely. And like I mentioned, before the fourth quarter, I was wondering if we were watching another second-half offensive collapse by the Seminoles. Instead, they rallied against a great defense and had them sweating out an onside kick with 2 minutes to go. Something to build on, we hope.
For more of the best FSU football content in the industry, much like what I just read to you fine folk, make sure to subscribe to Warchant TV by hitting the button below. It's absolutely free. Can you believe it? Free? Here on YouTube? And for more in-depth coverage on this topic and so much more, head to warchant.com. That's where I work. That's where I'm employed. You can sign up for just $10 through August of 2023. I'm Corey Clark. Thank you for watching Warchant TV.